This week on Beyond the Headlines, Governor says no to Biwater investigation.
It was obvious to us that he did not do any real investigation. His response letter was riddled with half-truths, inaccuracies, and omission of factual information. So it was something that we expected, that he would be in support of the British company.
After 6 months since being approached by at least two separate groups, both requesting a commission of inquiry into the controversial agreement between government and Biwater, His Excellency Governor Boyd McCleary has issued a written response in which he stated he does not propose to take any other action at this stage. It was in September last year that leader of the National Democratic Party, Dr. Orlando Smith, sent in an official request to the governor seeking a commission of inquiry into the Biwater contract. Prior to that, in August, members of the Talkshow Alliance also wrote to Governor Boyd McCleary requesting a stop to the Biwater contract and asking that a commission of inquiry be launched into the manner in which the contract was agreed upon. Since then, several calls have been made on the governor to respond to both requests, but no word came from the governor's office, not until Wednesday, March 23rd. In the letter written by the governor addressed to the citizens of the British Virgin Islands, Governor Boyd McCleary began by offering apologies for the delay in replying to the requests made since August last year. The governor then went on to state that in considering the request, he asked himself a number of questions, which he took the time to list and then answer himself. The questions included whether or not the price to be paid for water under the Biwater agreement was reasonable, to which he responded that Biwater's higher price for the first 12.5 years takes into account the fact that they are also helping address the Roadtown and Longlook sewage problems. The governor also asked himself if the project was subject to tendering, to which he answered that Cabinet decided that the tendering process should be waived and there was no such process. Next, Governor McCleary asked whether or not the agreement offers value for money, to which he responded that the government's financial advisors, Baker Tilly, reported that the revised draft agreement represents a viable solution to the water needs of Tortola for the foreseeable future at a drastically reduced cost. Questions were also asked about the reputability of the UK water company, to which the governor concluded that Biwater is a well-established company with a vast range of experience in the UK and around the world in water, wastewater and sewage sectors. Governor McCleary added that a background investigation came up with no adverse information on Biwater. But the governor ignored all evidence brought forward about the true financial position of Biwater, which proved that they were in no position to secure their loan for the project. The governor also concluded that Biwater is capable of delivering the results they have contracted to provide, and although he said it appears that the agreement represents a contingent liability for the government in relation to Biwater's debt, he followed suit with the letter sent to the Premier from the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, who recognized the Biwater contract as a contingent liability on the government and stated that it is important for this contingent liability to be recognized and correctly accounted for, which to date, it must be mentioned, has not been done. In conclusion, Governor McCleary stated that he does not propose to take any further action at this stage. However, despite the fact that the governor was able to satisfactorily answer the questions which he asked himself prior to responding to the citizens of the British Virgin Islands, the questions asked by the citizens themselves remain unanswered. Questions such as whether or not the Biwater contract is in fact still effective, seeing as several conditions precedent in the contract have not been met, and what happens now as the government has failed to account for the contingent liability in this year's budget. Questions also remain as to whether or not Ocean Conversion submitted a bid, invited or not, and whether or not that bid was considered by government. This despite the fact that Ocean Conversion's bid was millions of dollars less than that of Biwater's. The governor also failed to address the fact that long before any contract was signed, government had sent just over $2 million to Biwater for the purchase of a generator. Talkshow Alliance member Cromwell Smith spoke with JTV News following the governor's response and said that as far as they are concerned, the Biwater contract leaves the BVI government with a contingent liability. He added that initially the Biwater agreement promised to repair the country's sewage system while using their own money, repayable by the government over a 16-year period without having to put up any capital against the contract. However, Smith said that the conditions of the contract have since changed.
As far as we are concerned, we are now saddled with a contingent liability. The government, in their initial discussions with the public about why they are choosing Biwater to do the job, was that they were going to get a better supply of water. They were going to get the sewage system in the country repaired. Biwater was going to use their own money, and we would be able to pay it back over a period of 16 years without having to outlay any upfront capital, which the government claimed we did not have. As it turns out now, the company has not been able to secure a loan. The condition precedent, as far as we know at this point, have not been met. If the conditions precedent have not been met, the contract is therefore ineffective. So there's no effective contract. The deadline for the conditions precedent to have been met was August 18, 2010. And that is now about 7 months past, and we've heard nothing about it. According to the governor, Baker Tilly company did the due diligence, investigated Biwater, and found nothing wrong with them. Completely missed the Tanzania versus Biwater tribunal document that took place in the World Bank offices in Belgium. It missed its fiasco in Abu Dhabi. It missed its fiasco in South Africa. It missed Biwater's fiasco in Panama. It missed Biwater's financial difficulties that played out in the courts of New York City with the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, where a bank-appointed director of Biwater's declaration spoke specifically of the financial difficulties of Biwater, which made them had to sell their main water contractor, Cascal, to a Singapore company. So the due diligence missed all of these activities of mismanagement and financial difficulties of Biwater. Up to now, Biwater can't get a loan, and here we are now. The people of the Virgin Islands are saddled, will be saddled with a huge contingent liability.
In October last year, Minister for Education and Culture, Honorable Andrew Foy, spoke out against the Biwater agreement, citing that the terms of the contract had changed from Biwater securing their own finances to government having to collateralize land to secure Biwater's loan.
Now instead, Mr. Speaker, of their monies, they are looking to collateralize all property to get all money for them. Mr. Speaker, that's not what was purported when this originally came to the table. And Mr. Speaker, if their circumstances have changed, that they cannot come up with the monies, which was a noble intent by this government, but if their circumstances have changed and they need all stuff, quote unquote, lands, whatever, to collateralize, to get all money, to give us all water from all sea, and leave with all money, then we have to re-evaluate our position as a government.
According to Smith, as well as several members of the Talkshow Alliance, the governor's response was expected, as they believed that the governor would stand by the UK-based company and lend his support to Biwater. However, Smith contends that the governor did not do any research into Biwater.
The governor acted in character, where he defended the Biwater water purchase agreement. He used the same old debunked information that the government gave to justify they're taking away the contract from Ocean Conversion and giving it to the British company Biwater. It was obvious to us that he did not do any real investigation. His response letter was riddled with half-truths, inaccuracies, and omission of factual information. So it was something that we expected, that he would be in support of the British company. The advisors were all British companies, and it shows what unity can do. That when people are united around their people, they get $150 million over 16 years, and those people who are divided and debase their people, they are out of $150 million over 16 years. To me, it comes down basically to that unity is a key to your success.
Smith also spoke to the issue of the contingent liability that the Biwater Agreement poses to the government and by extension the people of the BVI, stating that government will be forced to ask for an increase in terms of its borrowing, and this will affect the territory's ability to borrow in the future for other projects, and the territory is still in need of the answers that they have posed regarding the Biwater contract. This is Walter Barrett, Beyond the Headlines.